On your marks, set,
And go.
boom, go. All right, guys. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Ian and Ian. We're so excited. I am always excited when I have a former running mate, somebody that I used to run against, way back in the days. So I get super excited because I'm so impressed and proud with what Coach Ken Harden. He's a two-time Olympian, and as you could see, that big T on his T-shirt, he's the assistant coach down in University of Tennessee. And we have a whole lot of accomplishment, and his philosophy, is running technique, and just a lot of things from a coaching perspective. So just stay tuned, guys, and we are so delighted. So before we get further words, I'm going to hand over to the health and wellness specialist.
Well, another night we just want to say welcome back to our viewers who've been following us for a while. We could not be more happy here this Sunday afternoon to have with us, a champion athlete, but also a coach that is now being able to give back, much of what he has learned during his journey. So Coach Harden, we just want to say welcome to the platform, Ian and Ian Real Talk. This is a platform where we really just want you to just come on here and just educate, inspire, and just motivate somebody who will be watching. So welcome, Coach Harden.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you both having me on. It's a privilege and an honor. Like Ian said, it's always fun to do stuff with guys we used to compete with, and we hung out. We used to spend full summers in Europe together, so it wasn't like it is today where people go over for 2 races and come back. We spent 4 months together playing spades every night. So and then we go race each other in the morning. But yeah, it's fun to be here, and I'm excited about it.
All right, guys. So, guys, we're talking again live in studio. It's another episode that we're talking about. So, we're just going to get right into the program. I know that we have talked about this many weeks, and the time has come. So, we're just going to get right into it because we have a lot to talk about tonight. So, Ken, as usual, I just like to talk about your earlier days, just as an athlete. How did you actually, when did you get into athletics, or what was your first sport that you actually played in your younger days?
Yeah, look, athletics was my first sport. My uncle was a 110 hurdler. He was meant to go to the Olympics in '72, but Rhodesia, as Zimbabwe was known back then, boycotted, and he never got to go. So it was something that was part of the family. Everyone ran track and did athletics, but growing up in Zimbabwe, you play every sport. So we had to play every sport. We were told to. I went to boarding school when I was 12, 13, and we played all the sports. So I had no choice, but athletics always had a special place in my heart because of, I always felt like I was doing it a little bit for him, and firing that path. So but I was very lucky. We ran barefoot on grass, and much like you guys do in Jamaica, and I came up much the same way. So and then I tore my ACL playing rugby my last year of high school. So rugby was my passion. It was something I loved to do. But track and field was always the one that had my heart, right? So I ended up coming to the States on a scholarship and was very lucky to end up at North Carolina and run against great athletes like yourself, and then make it a little bit further along. So, yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for that, Ken. Give us a little history about Zimbabwe, all the way from Zimbabwe, running on grass, like what we do in Jamaica. And, you always remember those days because running in grass, was always something that, it didn't make a difference for us. I never thought about the track. I mean, I used to run on the grass in my spikes
Right.
and all of that. And it's actually, now that I've grown up and think about it, it's good for the body to do that type of fall training on the grass. It's less pounding, but at the same time, you know that sprinting, when you try to get more technical in terms of the sprinting, it's a big advantage training on the track. So we're going to get into a little bit more about that later on. So started out doing a little bit of rugby, a little bit of track. So you end up went to one of the best university in the country.
I was very
Uh,
lucky.
that have that sky blue color.
Mhm.
In the great state of North Carolina, down in Chapel Hill, and that got to be a blessing. So let's talk about your days at um, going to. Well, how difficult was it? Was the choice? How did you end up at UNC Chapel Hill?
I actually, when I came to this country, I went to DePaul University in Chicago for a year, and ended up transferring and walking on at North Carolina. My dad worked for a tobacco company in Zimbabwe, and he came over to North Carolina on business, and I met him down there, and I literally I had 6 or 7 hours to kill, and I walked on campus and wandered around, found my way to the track office, and begged Coach Craddock to let me try to walk on. And I was just blessed to be there. There was such a great group of athletes there. Alan Johnson was there, Monique Hennigan was there, Latasha Colander, Marion Jones. So just phenomenal athletes like that. Curtis Fry, Coach Fry down in South Carolina was the sprints coach. Um, I trained with Coach Craddock most of the time, but learned so much from Coach Fry. Tony McCall, Milton Campbell, Henry McCoy. That was our 4x4. It was just a phenomenal time there. And it wasn't just track and field. It was all the sports. Mia Hamm in soccer, right? The greatest female soccer player ever.
Yeah.
Um, we went from Antoine Jameson to Vince Carter to Stackhouse and Wallace and those guys in basketball. The '96 Olympics, I can't even remember. We came back to Chapel Hill for a reunion after the Olympics. There must have been 30 Olympians from North Carolina. So it was just an amazing time to be there and be around a phenomenal group of people, and a phenomenal group of coaches as well. So I was very blessed to be able to do that, and be a part of it, and just be part of a great university. It's a special place for sure.
All right, that got to be awesome. So, what is it like to go to such a big powerhouse basketball and football school? What is it like on campus? Doing track. Do you actually get to hang out with? Do you see the basketball players and the football players, or how do you guys? How is it like on campus?
I tell you what, we saw a lot of the football players. A couple of my suite mates were football players. Basketball players are definitely a little bit secluded. The men's basketball team lives across campus. They do their weight room, their practices, their study hall, everything like that in the Dean Smith Center. So they're definitely a little secluded. We had a ton of fun getting to know the football players and those guys, and really enjoyed that part of it for sure. There was an interesting deal. We used to have a Wednesday night quad meet with St. Aug, and then NC State, and sometimes it was Duke, and every now and again it was North Carolina Central. But they would come over, and we'd have 2,000 or 3,000 people in the stands on a Wednesday night to watch the track meet. And I'm clearly remember my first year, because it was Marion Jones's first meet ever at Chapel Hill, right? She was a freshman. The women's basketball team just come off a national title. She's the starting point guard, and she comes out there, and there were literally thousands of people at the track meet to watch her run. So it was very cool.
All right, awesome. So my next question, we got to talk about the 400-meter hurdle. I just want to know, when did you actually take up that event, and what was the reason? How did you say, you know what, I think this is the event for me? How did that started?
Well, I did most events in high school. I ran 10.7 on the grass barefoot, and ran 21 seconds in the 200, and did all those things. Um, Ian, I'll tell you this: when I arrived in the States, thinking I was fast, and realized that I really wasn't that fast. I mean, I came out of high school thinking I was a 100, 200 guy. And I got to the States and realized that I wasn't. So I had to figure out another way around it and figure out a way to get to the Olympic Games and be a professional athlete. And, I was a decent quarter miler, but I could hurdle. Not great, as you recall. I'm not the best hurdler, but I just was lucky I was 6'5" and the hurdles aren't that tall. So it was quite honestly not by choice, but by necessity.
All right, awesome. All right, I'm gonna hold on for a little bit. Over to you, Ian.
Okay, Coach Harden. Quick question. We just want you to take us right back to Zimbabwe and tell us what it was like growing up as a child there.
Ah, the greatest thing that ever happened to me was being born there. You know, I grew up in a place where less than 1% of the population is white. I grew up with amazing people. I grew up appreciating everything that was handed to me because people have so little. I grew up in a place where it's a third world country, and yet our education system is one of the best in the world. Um, I grew up in a place where cell phones and cable TV didn't affect day-to-day life, right? You know, building something in the bush or doing something like that was more important. Getting to know your friends, riding your bike through the town or wherever you were. I went to boarding school. I don't know, 120 miles from the nearest city. There were 500 boys on a 600-acre campus, and there was real live wilderness outside our fence, right? So just what an amazing experience. But truly, I think the greatest part of it is I have an appreciation for people being people, and it not being about the color of their skin, where they came from, how they're educated, things like that. Truly appreciate that part of it. I will tell you that I believe Zimbabwean people are some of the best people.
Okay, thank you for giving us, your feedback on your home country. It seems like Zimbabwe is similar to Jamaica, like a third world country. Seem like running on grass. You're bringing back stuff from our hometown. You know, schooling, getting to school for us
Yep.
also could be difficult. So the next question I want to ask you is:
Mm-hmm.
now that you were ready to transition into the USA, how difficult was that as a teenager or just about your 20s? I don't know. What age did you get there again? And how was that?
I was 17 going on 18. It was definitely difficult. Look, it was not an easy transition, right? I can't people. There were more people in Chicago than there were in my entire country when I arrived there. It was mind blowing just to see that many people. One of the things that amazed me was my best friend in high school and I both came on scholarships together. Rob Chiswa is his name. He's black guy, ran together for 6 years through high school. He was a 4.8 guy. And man, we arrived in this country and had no idea what it was about to be, right? Like we didn't look at the internet. We didn't know what an email was. We had no earthly idea what we were getting ourselves into. And we stuck by each other and we looked after each other and we survived. But it was definitely an eye-opening experience for sure. And but I think that's put me in good stead, right? Because ultimately, my journey was one that was destined to be a coach and destined to help young people navigate that same journey. So, yeah. So great experience
And
in the long run.
great. And next question would be, so once you transition here, was that like under a full scholarship or did you have to cover a portion of it? Because we realize a lot of athletes still did not get a full scholarship.
I got a full scholarship out of high school. It was interesting. I had 5 or 6 scholarship offers to small schools, but when I tore my ACL, DePaul was the only one that kept the scholarship offer on the table. And I went there, I rehabbed. And then, I realized that I was never going to get to where I wanted to go training in a park in Chicago, right? It just wasn't going to happen. And I was fortunate enough to be in a situation to ask my dad to pay for 1 year of school. I worked as much as I could to help pay for other things. He paid for my tuition. I walked on at North Carolina. And the coach at the time, Coach Craddock, told me if I ran 49 seconds, he'd give me a scholarship. And I did. So he gave me tuition the next year, and I ran 48, and then I turned pro. So I sort of had the opportunity to do both things, right? To be a scholarship athlete and then be a walk-on athlete. But I certainly appreciated the opportunity both ways. I appreciated the scholarship when I had it, and what that meant. I think some of the athletes in this day and age don't understand that getting paid to do something is a two-way street. Okay, that there's an expectation that you produce. And then I had the opportunity to appreciate the fact that my dad had saved some money and allowed me to be a walk-on for a year, which was very special. And, to this day, I wouldn't be where I am today without that.
Thank you for sharing. Back to you, Ian.
All right, Kent. So, obviously, you're going on to UNC Chapel Hill. I know that got to be a lot of memory. I mean, and especially with the caliber teammates that, were on the team with you. I pretty much know all your teammates.
Yep.
I have, Monique Enigan all the way from a junior, at the
Right.
World Junior, and so it's like your peers, while your progress, you going to college, you guys, everybody making progress and doing all that. So let's talk a little bit about your accomplishment at UNC Chapel Hill. So obviously you probably was the school record holder at the time. I don't think that there has been anybody faster than you.
Well, actually, Kenny Solomon broke my record 2 years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So it was quite funny, right? Coach, Harless Metters was the head coach at Chapel Hill, for a while there, for about 5 or 6 years, and I worked with him at Florida State, and he had gone to Chapel Hill as well. So when his discus record got broken, Coach Craddock took the plaque off the board and mailed it to him, and we were making fun of him. So of course, when my record went down, he did the same thing to me. So, but Kenny Solomon's a worthy record holder. He's great young athlete. I'm excited to watch him the next couple of years.
All right. So thank you for that. So just for the record, let's talk about that race. Just going into the NCAA, how confident were you going into the final? What were your thoughts? Did you actually have a good feeling about it that you would have come out victorious?
I did. It was an interesting year. I'd run 49.7 the year before, running 15 steps the whole way, right? And you know how big I am. I mean, 15s was like, pitter patter. And we went to the conference meet that year, and Octavius Terry was in my conference. There were a couple of really good guys at Clemson, John Rothell at Florida State. So the conference was stacked, and I ran 48. I want to say 48.73 or something to win conference. But Octavius Terry was the defending national champ, and I had to run him down late in the race. And we went back, and I asked Coach, I said, look, I got to learn how to 15 or 13 step here and try to figure out this first half of the race. So we skipped some meets, and we did that. And the meet before nationals, we had a home meet, and I went out, I ran 13s to 5, and then went to the outside of the lane, ran 15s all the way home, and ran 49.0. And no one had run that fast that year. So I went into it in a really good place. I felt good. I'd run fast relays the whole year. I knew I was in shape. We won the 4x4 indoors that year, and I split 45-1. So I knew I was ready. But I had a great feeling about it. I really did. And I was excited about it, and it turned out great. So it was
All
a good
right,
meet.
all right. So just for the memory, I know it's a long time, but how did you feel at the time winning the NCAA champion? Pretty much your biggest race on the biggest occasion. How do you feel as a young man, in college, and how did they celebrate you with your coaches and your teammates?
Look, they were super excited. We were in a team battle, right? We had a couple of injuries. Milton Campbell ended up cramping in the 4x4. I think we ended up fifth or sixth as a team overall. So, we were trying to get on that podium, right? Trying to get one of those trophies, one of the top four. So it was a big deal, and we had some great performances. Tony McCall made the final in the 1 and the 2, Milton in the 4. We had a couple of really good field eventers as well. So we were really good. I think the most disappointing thing of the whole meet was that we got on the bus immediately after the meet and drove back to Chapel Hill. We didn't get a chance to party with everybody after the meet, so we were disappointed. But no, it was exciting, man. You know what it's like in track and field. You do all this stuff and you go back to campus and you realize that it's summer school and no one's actually there, right? So they put your picture in the newspaper and only a quarter of the population get to see it. So that's always a little bit disappointing, but they did a great job, and North Carolina has always done a good job of remembering us through the years. So it was exciting. I don't know, for me, that was such a great moment, such a big moment in my career, and I was so excited to get there. And then as soon as it was done, it was like the federation back home called me up and they're like, "Okay, you're going to World Championships." Okay. And then I'm like, "Bam, okay, well, we're on to the next thing," So off we went to Europe, and Alan Johnson was training at Chapel Hill at the time. He was training with Coach Fry. That funny story. I digress a little bit, but maybe 6 weeks into my first year in Chapel Hill, we had a 500-meter time trial, and I had heard all this stuff about the great Alan Johnson, and he was world indoor champ, and I expected to see him walk around the corner and be 8 feet tall and leap tall buildings in a single bound. He was just, everyone talked about him like he was the greatest thing ever, and he certainly was. And we line up for this time trial, and all of a sudden, Alan Johnson's standing next to me, and he's going to run the time trial. And Coach Fry's, pumping him up, and I'm just this skinny little walk-on kid. Man, I tell you what, I ran the first 300 of that in about 30.2. I rolled. And I never came back. And Alan Johnson to this day talks about it. And honestly, I was running so scared. I had no idea what I was doing. I just went as hard as I could. So, but yeah, it was a special place for sure.
Well, I know Alan Johnson at the time. He was just one of those special athletes. I mean, especially jumping in the 200. He could run a real decent 200. So yeah, he was very talented, and he probably could have run the 4 hurdles. I don't know if somebody might tell him that I say that, but he probably have done it at some point. Obviously it's not a fun event, so if you can get by doing obviously the 110 hurdler, it'll be easier than the 400 hurdler. But I have a lot of respect for Alan, what he accomplished. He's pretty much one of the all-time.
Sorry, Ian, I'm getting a bunch of feedback. I couldn't hear that question.
Yeah, I didn't. I still was talking about Alan Johnson. So, yeah, testing. Ian, are you hearing me clear over your side?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on.
Okay. How is it now? Is it better? I'm not sure. I know you have muted yourself for a little bit, but I'm not sure. You're muted right now. But so if you want to just close the browser and come back in, I'm not sure. Yeah, you could just close it and come back in.
Okay. No, you just went good. I don't know why. It was like all fuzzy.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
Well, sometime it just all depend on the internet feed, that's running through. So yeah. I would just saying all the good stuff about Alan. Probably could have ran the 4 hurdles, at some point. So,
sure.
Yep. So obviously you won this big NCAA ring. I don't know what you have done with that ring, but do you still have that ring somewhere tucked away?
Yeah, I have a whole box of rings. It's in there. It's in a nice little case in my office. I got it. It's there.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. So just to summarize your days at Chapel Hill, other than the track, just off the track, what one thing that you always remember about the university, just being on campus?
Just the most amazing place to me that when I got there, I was a nobody. When I left, I was still a nobody. I was able to meet new people every single day the whole time I was there. Right? It's 25,000 students at the time, and every class I went into, I met new people from different parts of this country, and had the opportunity to do that. But I think one of the most amazing things for me was the fact that no matter where I went in the world, people had heard about Chapel Hill, right? Whether it was because of Michael Jordan or whatever, but they'd heard about him. So it's a prestigious place. It's very cool to say that that's where I went to school, and that I won a national title there.
All right, awesome. So just another question in regarding to the just your early days, just in college. Who was your early role models like in college? Just looking back at athletics at the time, just your knowledge and your history of the sport. There was any particular athlete that you really admire in the running?
Yeah, look, Sam Matete grew up, a few hours from me, right? He's Zambia's next door to Zimbabwe. So, he was one of those guys that he won the world title in '91, my senior year in high school. And he was that guy. He was that guy that I wanted to be like, right? So certainly he was one of them. Um, I got a chance to meet Edwin Moses when I was young in college at one of our training camps, which was really cool. But for me, uh, Sam had come to the States. He'd gone through the college system. He'd done all that, and then he'd gone on the world stage, and he'd done some great things. So he was probably my role model. He was that guy. And then obviously my uncle, who was a really good hurdler back in the day. He was a guy I talked to a lot. He was a guy I talked to a bunch about just being a great athlete.
All right, awesome. All right, back over to you, Ian.
Yes, Coach Harden. What I really want to know, I know just doing track and field is very challenging. You got to put a lot of work in. So could you just tell us what really motivates you to get up and go out there and put that work in?
Um, just the desire to get where people didn't think I could get, right? I think I grew up in a country of hardworking people, as both of you did, right? If you grow up in a third world country, you grow up in a place where people know how to work hard, no matter what they do. And anytime you're in a place where there aren't that many jobs, there aren't opportunities. When you get one, when one's handed to you, you do your most with it. You do your best. So that was part of it. The other part was obviously the role models in my life. My mom and dad were extremely hardworking people, as were my grandparents. Those were people that showed me the way. My dad worked harder than any human being I've ever met. He put in hours. He did things for our family, and went the extra mile every opportunity he got. So there was no question that that's what was to be done. And so I think it's in the DNA. It's part of me because of who my family is, and it's part of me because of where I'm from. So uh, you got to work hard.
All right. And now, as a coach, how do you motivate others? Like your students. How do you go about getting them motivated to do the same?
Yeah, I think in similar ways. When I started coaching, I always felt like that half of my job was to coach uh, great young kids from this country, right? Athletes that had grown up in America and were part of this system. But the other half was to bring in other foreign athletes, to be part of our team, give them opportunities, give young people from other countries an opportunity to show themselves, to take their track and field career to the next level. And in doing that, allow both groups of athletes to benefit from the other. I think, Ian will tell you the same thing. Your teammates, or my teammates when I was in college, were always so amazed to hear the stories that I talked about growing up in a third world country. So, and I think it gave a different appreciation. I certainly wasn't the one walking in asking for new shoes every 5 or 6 weeks. I wasn't the one complaining we only had one uniform or whatever that is. So, I think when I build teams and I go recruit athletes, that's always in the back of my mind, that if I bring in some athletes from some places where they don't have so much, that there's an appreciation factor, and maybe that rubs off on the rest of the team. But ultimately, no matter who they are, which country they're from, this opportunity to be a collegiate athlete and the benefits that go with that should be motivation enough, right? The fact that you get free coaching and free tutoring and free education and free gear and free travel and all those opportunities, those are things that I think if you can bring that appreciation to the athletes' forefront and show them that, then their motivation is already taken care of.
Thank you for sharing those pointers there. Back to you, Ian.
All right. So, Ken, we're just going to move a little bit. I want to just touch a little bit on the '94 Commonwealth Games, and because we actually was at the time just was a young athlete, still in college, and I got a call to go to Canada, and I was like, yeah, why not? I mean, just gonna take the trip. As I said, just a sophomore in college, so
Mm-hmm.
so I went there. Actually, just went for the trip, just to travel somewhere, and so I ran, and I made the final, luckily. So for me, once I made the final, I was like, man, that's good. I'm only 21 years old, and I'm running against Samuel Matedi, guys that I've seen on TV. Let's talk about how did that decision come along for you? If and just let us know if that was your first time representing Zimbabwe, and how did that make you feel?
Yeah, it was very similar to your situation, right? Sort of come off NCAAs, go home for the summer, uh, train a little bit, think your season's over, and then they say, all right, you're going to Commonwealth Games, and it's not till the end of the summer. And
Yeah.
you're like, man, like this season seems to have gone on forever. And then you get on the plane, and, for us, we flew 11, 12 hours to England, spent 4 days training there, and then flew from there to Canada. So it was quite a long trip. But yeah, very similar. I same kind of deal as you. I'd run 49.89, I think, earlier that year, but really didn't know how I'd run it. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I was just running around the track, jumping over hurdles, and got there kind of like you, not really sure how I made the final, but made the final. You beat me, so but you posted that video a couple of weeks ago, and I was like,
Yeah.
man, that goes way back. But yeah, it was a fun experience. It was the first major meet of my career in terms of representing Zimbabwe. I'd represented Zimbabwe at like the Southern African Championships and things like that as a junior, but I'd never been to World Juniors or anything like that. I was always playing rugby or doing some other sport. So it was my first time as a senior putting on the uniform and representing my country. We ended up having a 4x4 that should have made the final and didn't.
Okay.
But we of course we brought 4 guys and we needed a fifth. We ended up running a 1,500-meter dude on the 4x4. But we had a lot of fun. It was a cool experience. And we went right back, and I think I arrived in school sort of the Monday afterwards, we started classes on Tuesday. So yeah, it was a lot of
All
fun.
right. Yeah, back then, actually didn't know anything about social media, or anything like that. So, I mean, I so accidentally, now that I'm older, I'm trying to see if there was any races out there that popped up. So
Right.
obviously, that race was all about Samuel Matete, but we was still in there, and there was a couple Kenyan, and the British, they take big pride in the Commonwealth game.
Yes.
I know that I have a memory of seeing the Queen. Any recollection of her hearing about the Queen when it was at the Commonwealth game?
I remember her being there. Yeah, I remember everyone talking about it. So yeah,
Okay,
it's cool.
okay,
Yep.
awesome. All right, so let's move along. Obviously, 95, you have, went to the first World Championship. Just tell us a little bit about your experience in 95, and how did your season went in 95, just competing in the World Championship?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was kind of a follow on to the NCAA, right?
Yeah.
I went to Europe. I didn't lose a race the whole season in the NCAA, right? An individual race. So that it was a really exciting year for me. The college scene, I sort of, made my way, and I was a factor in the college scene, and undefeated in the hurdles, felt really good about my season. And then I go straight from there to Europe. I mean, I left like, oh, I don't even know, 2 weeks after NCAA's. And I run this whole season leading up to World Championships. And I never ran a race that didn't have either Matete, Diagana, or Derek Atkins, or more than one of them the whole summer. So I won every race in my collegiate season, then didn't win a race the rest of the year. And, I go to World Championships, I finished sixth, and I'm, I don't know what to do with myself. Like I run track because I like to win, and I haven't won a race in 3 months, and I'm a little bit depressed. And I walk onto the warm up track after the race, and I put my bag down, and there's a massage table, and I didn't realize that Michael Johnson's getting a massage there, and he looks over and he goes, "Hey Ken, how'd you do?" And I'm like, sort of, I have no words coming out because Michael Johnson knew my name, right? So I'm thinking I've arrived, right? That forget you didn't win a race, but so I'm like, I got six. He's like, oh, that's a good job, whatever. And he goes back to his massage. So it was pretty cool. I felt like I sort of arrived at somebody that of that stature knew my name. But that summer was a lot of fun. I got to be part of the professional track and field scene and be on the circuit and hang out with Kareem Street Thompson and Bernie Surin and people like that. It was really neat. So that summer was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Just country to country, meet a bunch of people, run in races, and then somebody gives you a stack of money after every race and says thanks very much for competing.
Yeah.
Like who would have thought when we were growing up that they were going to actually pay us to do this? So
Yeah.
it was pretty neat. But no, World Championships was a lot of fun. I didn't run a PR, but I ran close to my PR every round. So I was really excited about that. It was a long season. And making the finals a big deal. So had a good time.
Yeah. That's definitely was a great accomplishment. So let's move along to the 1996 season. Obviously, the Olympics is going to be in Atlanta, in the United States, and you train here. And how did you think at the time of the beginning of the season? What were your goals? And did you feel like you accomplished those in the 96?
No, I didn't. I changed coaches. I moved down to Florida State to train with Kim Batten and Terry Long, which was such a great move for me. I think it, and at the end of the day, when I look back now, it was the right move. But at the time, it was very different training, a very different scenario. I started the season off really well. I went to the Prefontaine meet and photo finished with Danny Harris for the win. And then I went to Europe and had a couple of good races. And then the wheels just kind of fell off. I didn't run well. I couldn't get my race pattern right. And I really struggled all the way up until Atlanta. and sort of felt like the season was over before it started. And then, arrived at the Olympic Games. I'm like, I'm going to make the most of this. I'm going to enjoy it. This is my first Olympic Games. There'll be 3 or 4 more. I'll be back here every time there's Olympic Games. And so I ran a PR the first round, ran another PR the second round, but I missed the final. I ran 48:50 something, and I think it took 48 low 4, 48:41 or something to make the final. So I was really disappointed. I was heartbroken. I felt like that was my opportunity to make the final. I wasn't good enough to medal at that meet, but I felt like I was good enough to make the final. And I was disappointed. As you know, the Olympics come around every 4 years, and you just don't know what's going to happen the next time around. So it was a little disappointing season, but it was definitely a transition to being a full-time pro, which again, college kids that leave college and go from being part of a team and having a trainer and somebody setting up their hotel and getting them food and all that stuff, that first year is definitely a difficult transition. And I certainly felt it.
Okay. So other than off the track, in terms of making it to the Olympics and just being in the whole environment, what was your biggest memory off the track in Atlanta? Anyone that you meet or anything that you can remember that you could say that, look, it's part of my Olympic memory?
Yeah, I mean, I stood in line in the dining hall for, heck, I don't even know, 2 hours to shake Muhammad Ali's hand. That's the pinnacle, right? I mean, to me, he's arguably the greatest athlete this planet's ever seen, and he lights the flame, and then he shows up at lunchtime in the dining hall, and that right there for me was one of the most special things ever. That's a memory I'll cherish for the rest of my life. It was really special. So there was the other stuff, right? Being, you're Olympian, right? And no one can ever take that away from you. You'll always be an Olympian. One of Marvin Bracey put up a post the other day is that he said his granddad had told him that, well, you didn't make the finals at the Olympic Games. I'm like, man, there were 15,000 people at the Olympic Games competing out of 8 billion. Like you're special if you get there. So that was a special thing to be able to say I made it there and I was part of something. But meeting Muhammad Ali was a very, very important moment in my life. So,
okay, awesome.
And I'll tell you, it's probably second only to the African Championships in '95. We got an opportunity to meet our president, to meet Robert Mugabe at the time, and stand in front of him and shake his hand, and that was a pretty special moment as well. So to be able to do those two things and be part of that's special.
All right, awesome. Over to you, Ian. I'm gonna wrap up your track career when I come back to the next segment, but let me get you over to Mr. Ian Thomas.
All right.
Okay, Coach Harden. So, I see where you talk about just little disappointment, but I just say, how do you overcome, or how do you continue from, probably not performing at your fullest for a particular race, and then know that you have to get up and go back to work again at it for another year or the next 4 years? How do you do that?
Well, I think ultimately, as an athlete, just like as a person, you learn more about yourself and what you're doing from your disappointments than you ever will from your successes, right? I think oftentimes as athletes, when we have success, we're not even really sure how it happened. Lots of times you talk to athletes when they run a personal best or run a great race, and you're like, well, what happened? They're like, I don't remember. And generally it's because they're so relaxed and so calm. They went and executed a race plan and they just did what they were meant to do. So I think that's where coaches come in. My coach, Terry Long, was phenomenal at refocusing his athletes onto the next goal and using disappointment just the way you would success to be a motivating factor. So, and I try to implement that with the kids that I coach now. They're young people that are not accustomed to failure. Most of them come from a place where they were one of the best in their city, in their country, in their, their region, whatever it is, and they won most of their races. And then they show up in the NCAA, and it's world class track and field. So there's probably uh, more disappointments than successes for most of them. So you have to be able to turn that into motivation.
Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing right there. Back to you, Ian.
All right, so good, Ken. So, Ken, we're just gonna move on. I want to just talk about a few little more things about your athletic career. I mean, obviously, just gonna talk about in general. We know that you probably competed in every world championship, 95, 97, 99, the Olympics in 2001. Just talk about overall with your career competing, representing your country. What's your best memory of representing your country that you really felt like that's something that you always will remember?
Yeah. Well, we made the world championship final in the 4x4, and we ran 3 flat. And that was in 97 in Athens. That was a special moment. We took 4 young kids that had somehow survived college in America, and found a way to continue training and competing. And we put it together. Our leadoff leg was a guy that was literally building houses while he was training. I mean, he was a bricklayer. And he went out there and split 45 and change to lead off a 4x4. That was a special moment because that group of guys, we'd all come up together. We'd been together since we were 14, 15 years old on various teams. So that was really special to me. That group of athletes really persevered to survive in the sport as long as they did. And for us to run 3 flat against, for the most part, athletes that were getting paid a lot of money to do it. So that was really neat. The rest of my career was a little bit of a downer. I ran fast in 98, 99. I tore my Achilles sort of halfway through in 2000 in May in Osaka. Did a bunch of rehab, did sugar injections and things like that, and managed to jog around the track in Sydney. But that was another special moment, right? Because my brother made the team, and to go to the Olympic Games with a brother, that's pretty special. So we got to be there together, and we didn't run great, but we were there, and we did it together, and that was really special. And that was pretty much the end of my career. At that point I knew that it was going to be tough to come back. I tore it again in 2001, trying to come back, and that was the end of that. And then sort of got back that summer after tearing it the second time, and my coach just sat me down. He's like, look, it's time to move on. It's time to go do the next thing, and the next thing is for you to be a coach. I'd volunteer coach for a number of years, and he said, I think you can be good at it if it's something you're passionate about. And so that's what I did. I went to work. I was a volunteer coach for another 3 years. I just figured it out.
All right. So just before we move on to the coaching, I just want to ask you a couple of fun questions. Just in terms of you running in Europe all over the place, where would be what would you say your a place that you go to run that that you really enjoy, just the track and the environment, and you could name more than one if you like.
Yeah. I always enjoyed running Zurich. I mean, obviously the fans were so knowledgeable, right? And you're in the lobby, and people coming up to you with pictures from 3-4 years ago, asking you to sign them, and it's super cool. So I always felt like anywhere you ran in Switzerland, the people were very knowledgeable. But running Crystal Palace was like you guys. I grew up watching track meets in Crystal Palace, right? Like that was it, So always felt like that was a special place. And So anytime I had a chance to run there, that was probably my favorite track in Europe.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So, other than the injury personally that you have experienced, was there any other challenges that really you feel like kind of affect your performance while you was on the professional? What was that like for you? What were some of the advantage and some of the good highs and the lows just being a professional?
Well, I think, look, once you become a coach, you look back at what you were as an athlete, right? And a couple of times I've called up Coach Long, and I'm like, man, I'm really sorry you had to deal with me because I wasn't as coachable as I should have been. You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
I think when I look back at who and what I was as an athlete, I'm proud of the fact that I persevered through an ACL reconstruction and things like that, and made my way to the Olympic Games and did those things. I also know that I could have been better, but I think those things are things that allow me to be a better coach. Is that introspective, the opportunity to look at myself and be like, well, I have a young 400 hurdler here from Barbados. He ran 50.7 in the 400 hurdles in high school. Rasheem Griffith. I think he's going to be really special. So I've been able to look back at my career and say, well, when I was trying to learn how to 13 step, what did I do? What did the coach do? How did I react to that? And then try to be a little bit of a better coach. So I have nothing but great memories about my career, because I think all of it was a bonus as far as I'm concerned. I could have ended up not coming to college after I tore my ACL and be a regular guy working in a regular job, and I'm not. I get to go out every day and work with young people. So I'm very blessed in that regard.
All right, awesome. So this is another question from me. Did you actually ever get a chance to come to run back in Zimbabwe as after college or at any point?
Yeah, we had African champs there in '95, and I didn't run great. I think I got fourth or fifth. It was such a long year, and I literally just ran out of gas. But a couple of meets, had a chance to run in South Africa and meet Nelson Mandela, which was again one of those special moments in your life, right? So got to run back there a little bit. Obviously, I have a lot of friends that I grew up with, that I went to boarding school with. There was 90 something guys that started boarding school in my year, and we're all on one group chat on WhatsApp. So
Yeah.
to this day, it's quite a funny group chat. Probably not politically correct, but it's pretty funny. It's a great mixture of ethnic groups, people that live all over the world. It's phenomenal to see where everybody that I grew up with has gone. But I got to see those guys all around the world afterwards. Like Jamaicans, right? We end up spread out all over the world. So I got to see some friends in Australia. I got to see some friends in England, and that's pretty cool.
Okay. By the way, did you get a chance to run in Jamaica?
Yeah, I ran, man, probably the hardest meet of my life. Do you remember in 90, I want to say it's 97, Don
Yeah,
Moore put a meet on?
I was there. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I ran the 400 hurdles and I crossed the line. I hadn't even walked off the track. And Don walked up to me and he goes, "Hey, I'll pay you double if you run the 400. And it was the last meet of the year. I'm like, "Sure, no problem." I go, "When is it?" He goes, 18 minutes.
Man.
Man, dude, I almost died the next 3 days. So, but it was a lot of fun. So yeah, I got to run there that one time. It was neat.
Okay, awesome. Any other on the track? I mean, just over in Kingston, did you get a chance to do anything? I know it's a short time, but did you get a chance
Yep.
to at least go to eat some fish or something?
Yeah. No. Because I've been to Jamaica probably, I'd say 30 times with
Oh,
recruiting and stuff, right? I
okay,
mean,
okay,
I've been to Boys and Girls Champs
okay.
6 or 7 times. But that particular trip when I ran there, we went over to Ocho Rios and stayed. my girlfriend and I, we stayed there for 3 days, 3 nights. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, I know my way around Kingston pretty good. I'm probably one of the few foreigners that will rent a car and drive in Kingston. So, yeah.
All right. Well, congratulations, man. I'm glad that you have made the trip so many times that know how to get your way around. We wouldn't have to send a cab for you. You pretty much could get off the plane and say, look, I want to go to the Pegasus. I want to go to the Hilton, and get in the car. You know that it's about 20, 30 minutes drive and, just get into it. So that's always a plus when you could, go to another country and able to move around without any tour guide or anything like that.
Yep.
So
no,
yeah.
I mean, when I coached Ricardo Chambers, right, I was there for every national championships for 4 or 5, 6, 7 years. So so I got to go there a lot. I used to stay at the Pegasus, and then now I stay at Knutsford Court. So that's my spot.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And Ian, Ian is in Jamaica now. I think he's gonna get the chance. He probably wanted to go up there to see Ricardo because he's a big farmer in Jamaica. So Ricardo, Chambers, Ian, this the man that was coaching Ricardo during his collegiate career. And even when he went to Jamaica, and he told us the story how he came back to Florida State to try and get his degree. And it was very challenging for him at the time because he just wanted to finish school, and obviously his eligibility and everything was over. So but that was awesome. He was a great athlete. We watched that 400 meter at the NCAA at the time, and that was a great race. So again, and so I'm sure that he's one of the many Olympians that you have coached, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other athletes that you coach during your coaching career. So just to summarize your running career, anything that you have learned about yourself now when you look back of being an athlete that you could say, man, I've learned a lot about myself, and I've come to know myself a lot more just looking back at it from. I know you said your coach Kim and Miss Coach Long, you said it early on, but they got to be really a good coach to put up with you.
For sure.
But anything you'd have done different now?
I don't think there's anything I would do different. Obviously, I'd like to be more coachable and more open to what he was, trying to teach me. I think every athlete probably looks back and says that. But certainly you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn how far you're willing to push yourself, and you also figure out that however far you think you can go, there's always more that you can go, right? There's always more you can do. You can train harder, you can eat better, you can do more core. There's always more you can do, and I think it's part of the reason that you hear people that hire young people for jobs. They're partial to athletes because athletes are always willing to go a little bit further. They understand that there's always more gas in the tank for them.
All right, awesome. So this is another question just for all the hurdlers that's watching this program or any 400-meter runners. Tell us your favorite workout, that you like doing as an athlete back in your good glory days.
My good glory days. We did a lot of split 4s and split 5s, right? 300 plus 200, 300 plus 100. And there's one particular where we ran 3 plus 2, and I ran 32 and 22 on 2 minutes rest. And Ricardo Chambers tried to break my record his entire career that I coached him, and he never could. And so just for that reason, it's probably my favorite workout. So sorry, Ricardo. But I love that workout because it required great speed and great ability, but it also required the ability to turn your brain off and just enjoy the pain, So that was my favorite one. And ultimately, I was a good 400 hurdler, but in hindsight, maybe I could have been a better quarter miler if I had set my mind to that earlier on. But once you're labeled a quarter hurdler, that's what you do. So
All right. Yeah, and it's pretty tough to do both. So
yes,
eventually you just have to focus on one, and eventually it hurts you 400 in the long run because
yes,
I'm the type of guy that could get out faster in the hurdles than the open 400.
yeah,
I feel like the hurdles, the obstacle that I'm attacking and I'm being aggressive, it's easier for me than to run without doing anything. When I'm running without the hurdles, sometimes it feel like I got a flat. It just it doesn't feel comfortable. For the
really,
most part. Yeah, yeah. But
yeah,
4x4 is different on the relay.
yes,
Always enjoy those. I pretty much just run the whole thing from start to finish. As fast as I can. Just
yep,
like a time trial. I just try to go, and there's in relay, you're trying to make up the stagger. You try to bring your team, so it's like a
hmm
sacrifice that you got to make sometimes. So
yeah.
that's
No,
pretty tough.
I love relays. I think relays give athletes an opportunity to go beyond where their comfort zone, and it's a great learning tool.
All right, awesome. So just to add another part, what was the other workout that you hated? When coach tell you got to do that workout, to be like, man, coach, what are you thinking?
Two, 200, 400, 200, 200 on a minute rest.
200, 400. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I never done that one before. It's more for me. It's more like the 500, 600. Um,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
I didn't like those either, but 1,000 meters of running in sort of 4 minutes, just man, it yeah, I wasn't good like that. And I was definitely a speed guy, right? Like I ran 20.6 in the 200. I wasn't a strength guy. So I much preferred the stuff where we went fast.
All right. All right. We're gonna move over to the coaching career. Might go back to one or two questions, but just since we're gonna talk about coach, you've been two-time Olympian. You pretty much ran professionally and traveled all over the world, competed in many world championships. How that make you a better coach, knowing that you got so many athletic experience and accomplishment as an athlete? How that make you become a better coach, in your opinion?
Well, I think in two ways. I think coaching is like most jobs where there's no substitute for experience, right? I think when you're a young coach, you you understand what the recipe says and how to bake the cake. But the more times you bake the cake, the more times you realize that maybe a dab of this or a little bit more of that makes the cake taste better. So I think that the two things that it helps with are one, the ability to see the bigger picture, to understand that a young athlete who comes to you at 17 or 18 years old that says, I want to go to the Olympic Games, and you're like, man, you're a long way from there. But I was that kid. I was that young athlete. So I think it gives me that ability to see the bigger picture. And then the other thing is the ability to not just say to the athlete, hey, I've been where you want to go, I've been where you are, but also to be able to sit back as a coach and say, you know, all right, this young athlete is has a season where there's Olympic Games, there's a qualifying mark, there's a trials or whatever it is. How are we going to plan this year? How would I have wanted my coach to discuss that? How would I have wanted my coach to plan out my collegiate season, with with the ability to look at the Olympic Games as well? I think one of the things that a lot of foreign athletes are scared about when they come to the States is the idea that they'll get run into the ground during the collegiate season, that they'll race too often and things like that. And I've prided myself in the fact that my athletes have always run well at the World Championships, the Olympic Games, the Commonwealth Games, uh, Carifta, whatever it is, because I've made sure that those were part of my plan, because I understand that it's not just about the NCAA meet for a lot of kids, right? There's bigger goals out there.
All right, awesome. And I'm gonna get a bonus question in, and then we'll just be over to you. So just tell us a little bit about your coaching career. Obviously, you started out at Florida State. You know, you has accomplished so much at Florida State, but just what was some of the challenges as a young coach when you started out?
Um, yeah, the first thing was to learn how to recruit, right? You know, if you're a college coach in America, the coaching part of it is only half the battle. You know, going out and recruiting talented young athletes, people that you truly feel like fit your way of coaching, your system, and then balancing the athletes, the three things in their life, right? Their personal life, their academics, and then their athletics. So, and learning how to guide an athlete, I think when you're a young coach is really difficult. You know, I was a volunteer coach at Florida State. I had Brian Zingai, who was fourth in Beijing in the 200, and he really helped me because we were both from Zimbabwe, and he came to Florida State because I was there, and we coached each other. You know, he helped me be a better coach, and I helped him be a better athlete. But we had a great relationship. We still do to this day, where we're very open with each other. We were able to communicate very openly, and he was able to say, "Hey, look, you know, I don't think this is the right way to do things because this is how it makes me feel." And I'm like, okay, well, let's take a step back and let's look at it. So we truly learned together. And, you know, to his credit, Brian was probably the hardest working athlete that I've ever been around. He was a true master of his craft. But I would not have been as successful with Walter Dixon, Ricardo Chambers if it hadn't been for Brian Zingai. He truly was the beginning of my career.
All right, awesome. Over to you, Ian Thomas.
Okay, Coach Harden. Now that you have transitioned into the whole coaching, what would you say is the most challenging factor affecting our athletes today?
Um, I I think that you're talking about the Jamaican athletes or the athletes in general.
In general, in athletes, you could generalize, but then you could also touch base on third world too. You know, that could also break it down.
I think in terms of all the athletes, one of the hardest things is that the professional ranks have shrunk in size, right? When Ian and I were competing, you could run a track meet every other day if you wanted to in Europe, right? You could go to Italy and run a race on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday every week for the whole summer. And now they've shrunk the European circuit so much that there's far less opportunities to become a professional athlete. Now, what that's done is it's forced a lot of junior athletes to move to the NCAA system. It's why you've seen far more European athletes in the NCAA system because they don't have those opportunities either. But it's truly become a sport where there's a lot of money at the top and very little money at the bottom. And I think that's one of the hardest things for athletes trying to go beyond college. In terms of the college scene, I don't think anything's that hard. I think if you do your research, and there's plenty of research out there, and you look at a coach's their resume, and you say, well, I'm going to go there because that coach is going to coach me well. That coach has been able to take other athletes where I want to go. Then I think you will be successful. When athletes pick universities based on the weather's better, they have a nicer cafeteria, those things don't contribute to the ultimate goal, right? If you're going there because they have your major, if you're going there because the coach is successful, if you're going there because you're comfortable with the team and things like that, those are things that affect you day in, day out. So I think some of the time we get athletes, especially from countries like Jamaica and Zimbabwe, where they haven't had an opportunity to research enough, and they haven't been given good enough advice, and I think that's difficult.
Okay. During your time being a professional athlete, what would be one very important lesson that you have learned?
I tell you, one of the things that Alan Johnson told me right at the beginning was understand that your agent touches every penny you make, and you need to pick an agent wisely. You need to make sure that if somebody's going to touch all your money, that they're doing right by you. And I think, it has nothing to do with running fast, but it has everything to do with your mental state, right? I want to make sure that I got enough money for me to be comfortable and be able to train hard and do the work I want to do. So limiting the outside stresses and allowing yourself to be a great athlete. We watch the NBA players, the basketball players, and they're all fit and they're in great shape and they're this and that. Next thing, well, their outside stressors are limited, right? They have a professional cook, they have somebody to drive them, they have all those things. So they remove so many stresses from their life. And I think if you're a young athlete today and you can remove the stresses and be able to focus on the things that are important, that's a big deal.
Back to you, Ian.
All right, awesome. So before we get into some more of the program, I want to go ahead and just share some of your coaching philosophy, your coaching technique, just some of your work that you have put out there, some of your teaching. You're like coaching is like a teacher also. So just from that perspective, just want to share with you and might ask you a few questions about what the work that you have done.
Mm-hmm.
So let me yeah.
You can know all the drills and see them all and watch them on YouTube, but unless you understand how they fit together and the sequence that makes sense, it's very difficult to have an athlete be successful. Sprinting is all about putting the correct mix together. How do I build my stage? Is it 30 meters? Is it 38 meters? How do I train max velocity? Am I doing flying 30s off a 20-meter run-in, or am I doing it off a 30-meter run-in? We want that foot on and off the ground as quick as possible. So we're going to stand up, we're going to take the foot up here, and we're going to attack the ground. There's a misconception that if I turn over really fast, I'm going to go somewhere. And the reality is the relationship between stride length and stride frequency is definitely a balance. He holds the 90-degree angle in the front and the back, allowing him to drive with the elbow down and create force into the ground. So we're going to talk a little bit about low heel recovery and the positives and the negatives. We've built this course around a plan that'll take you from the first day of training all the way to that meet that's the most important competition of the year. That includes how to build training cycles, do's and don'ts of sprinting, great drills, great technique stuff. So if he drops the chin on his chest, he'll tuck the hips under, and that creates a pulling motion down the track, which can put the hamstring at risk. If you were spinning a basketball on your finger, once it's moving, I just have to gently tap it. That's how running is.
All right, coach. So now that we watched that video, one of the questions that I would love to ask you, what do you enjoy about coaching?
I love watching the progression of young people. When you take an athlete and you try to teach them your way of doing things or what you believe is the correct way, and when the light bulb turns on and it clicks, it's a phenomenal moment. You know, I you know Dorian Scott. Dorian Scott
Yeah.
was a Jamaican Olympian shot putter, and Dorian and I coached together at Florida State for many years, and we always said that this was our second career, right? I'm not in this for fame. I'm not in this for glory. I love coaching. I love to tell people I drive the van. That's my job, right? I make sure my athletes are at the track. But it's truly about them being able to experience the things I did, right? The NCAA championship, the World Championship final, being an Olympian. So I just love watching the light bulb turn on. It's a special moment.
All right, awesome. So just to get into a little more specific, talk about some of your individual accomplishment on the professional side. That you have coached over the years, and just somebody that you enjoy coaching, and it was just an honor to coach.
Yeah. Well, I think Brian Zingai is easily that person, right? The guy he's 5'5.5" on a good day. He got fourth in Beijing in the 200. His PR is 2013, but he ran like 2021, 2017, 2013. He just did it all right, but he truly worked harder than anyone I've seen. When he arrived, he was a true 100, 200 guy that didn't really like to train for the 200. He used to tell me that anything past 150 was too far. And we sat down, we discussed how to be a great 200-meter guy. He's built like a guy who should have run the 100, and yet he ran great 200s. And part of it was because he bought into the concept that you don't have to run the 400 to be a great 200-meter runner, but you have to train like a quarter miler some of the time. And he truly bought into it. But coaching him was certainly an honor. There's two types of athletes you get to coach in college. One is the super talented person that you're managing part of the time, and some of the time you're coaching, and then there's the athletes that you truly coach up and take them from one level to the next. So Brian Zingai is just a special human being in general, not just on the track. And I think oftentimes you're drawn to athletes because they're very successful in their sport. But when you find athletes are successful elsewhere and they're good people, then those are special athletes.
All right, awesome. And you talk a little bit about velocity and movement and making up ground and the technique of running. Is it a difference to coach certain athletes, taller athletes or shorter athletes, or it's one formula down the board?
No, I truly believe that you have to develop a different formula for every athlete. I coached the Borlée brothers when they were in college, right? Kevin and Jonathan, and
Yeah.
they're twins. Jonathan's run 44-41 and Kevin's run 44-48. They're about as similar as you can get any two athletes on this planet. But Jonathan can run 20-20 and Kevin can only run 20-70. But Kevin can run, I think he's run 1:15 indoors in the 600, and Jonathan's not built like that. So if you can't build a formula for each individual athlete, then you will be successful part of the time. I think when I look back at my coaching career, I'm yes, there have been some great highs and some athletes that have done amazing things and won medals and all those kinds of things. But for me, the fact that almost every single athlete, I think bar two, that I've coached have gotten better while I coach them, that tells me that I've been able to develop formulas for the individual, not just for the group. Yes, there's some different things. If you're 5'5" Brian Zingai versus 6'6" Usain Bolt, sure, there's some things that you have to train differently. In that educational video that you posted there, we talk about Ngoni Makusha ran 989, right, and he long jumped 840, and Walter Dix ran 988 and ran 19.5 in the 200. And when you look at the numbers, they're very similar, but Walter Dix was essentially a cross between a football player and a boxer. I've never seen an athlete be able to handle a volume of work that Walter Dix could handle. He could train twice as much in terms of volume as Ngoni could. But Ngoni was built different, and he had some special things to him. So when we put together those training plans, there was an overlap of, say, 30 or 40% in terms of training, but the other 50 or 60% was very different for each one. And I think that's part of the reason that they were both so successful.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for that explanation there. Over to you, Ian. I'll get you not fall asleep over there.
Man, I just want to say today was a tough day, man. I've been running all day, but always a pleasure to come back to your passion. So Harden, quick question for you. I know you been through the ropes. You did your days on the field, running from traveling all over the world. And now we're at a state in our life where the pandemic had hit us. We're not able to travel that much. As a coach, I know you have your athletes, but there probably would have been some events that you would be going at least to get a good look at your athletes, where they are, and so forth. How difficult is that now that we're facing a pandemic? Your mic is mute.
Yep. Sorry. Ian has changed a lot. There's certainly, our lifeblood as a college coach in America is recruiting, right? It's everything we do. And the ability to go in and see young people and talk to them face to face, for me, is a really big deal, because when you look across the board at the athletes that I've coached, only some of them were great juniors, right? A handful of them. Most of them were, Makusha ran 10.6 in high school. Kamar Hyman ran 10.6 in high school. Brian Zingai ran 10.7 in high school. So I love the opportunity to go talk to athletes face to face, observe them, because I think that gives me more knowledge about the young person, not just a time, right? Not just, okay, you ran X. We have a young girl on the team, Joella Lloyd. She's a sprinter from Antigua. She was second to Carifta behind Williams. And I think she's going to be special. But CJ Green ran for me at Georgia, and he told me about her, and he said, hey, she's very talented and this and that. And I went down there to meet her and watch her practice. And within 3 minutes of having a conversation with her, I knew I had to coach her, because she's just a special young person. And so I think it has changed some things, certainly for the athletes that we have on the team. Their ability to be flexible and pliable has been tested extremely the last 6 or 7 months. And I think they're all very excited to get back on the track and go back to what they know, what they're accustomed to.
I guess we all can't wait to have the athletes hitting the tracks. So much of our sports been taken away from us.
Yes.
It actually get to the point that some of us are even getting depressed. we're used to a certain lifestyle, certain routine. Now it's like we have to pivot. Is that like for
Yes.
me? We play a lot of cricket. Now we see days that looks beautiful, beautiful sunshine. The weather is good, but yet still you're here, and man, you can't use the park.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
it's some tough days that we're going through.
Yeah.
And another question is, how does this affect the mental part of the sports? The athlete mentally, how does that affect them personally now?
I think in a huge way, right? And it can be positive and negative. I think there's some athletes that certainly have struggled the last 8 or 9 months because they they enjoy the competition more than they enjoy the process, right? They like to compete far more than they like to train. So I think those athletes have struggled. I think there's a subset of that group that enjoys the process and likes the hard work and the training. So there's definitely different groups of athletes, and we've seen that even on our team. Um, but the ability of the coach to think outside the box, right? To have inter squad meets, to give the athlete goals along the way, to be able to say, well, look, if we can't compete at a competition with other universities, then we're going to compete with ourselves. So, um, our goal is to be better in the weight room. Our goal is to be able to get 9 out of 10 block starts correct. Our goal is to be able to do better in class and manage our lives and balance our lives better. So um, I think there've been some opportunities, but it's certainly been hard, especially on some of our younger athletes. I think the freshmen, the first year athletes this last year, because they know of college is a COVID year, and so that's been really difficult on the young group. And then I think the
That
follow on to that is that you've got all these athletes that now have been granted another year of eligibility, and that's really affected how much scholarship money is out there for this next group of athletes.
Thank you for sharing. That was pretty deep right there. So definitely we can't wait for this pandemic to be past, be over with. All
Yes,
right, Ian,
very
back
much
to you.
so.
Yeah. Taking a drink up my North Carolina cup, man.
Go Heels.
Yeah. All right. So that's one of the things that I missed. I'm not able to go to any game. I was
Mhm.
looking forward. I take pride in, that's like my hobby. I like to go to sports and events.
For
And
sure.
we living down here in the Raleigh Durham area. We only got college sport. So I take big pride into it. I know you into down in Tennessee, and So let's talk about your role as a coach now. Obviously, you have probably over and you could correct me. You're probably going on over 15, 20 years of coaching experience.
Hmm.
Um, you know, so, and I know that you're not planning to retire anytime soon. But I don't know. Do you retire from coaching? I mean, but anyway, what are your strengths? Tell us a little bit about you as a coach, just knowing the type of person that you are, and you probably could give me two or three of your strengths as a coach. Just looking back at it, that's something that that these are something that I must demonstrate and let my athlete know that this is part of the formula for success.
Right. Well, I think as a college coach, the first thing is that you have to understand that every athlete is important, right? And I think if you go through my career, the athletes that I've coached will tell you that I care, not just about how well they compete, but how their life is going in general, right? You know, how's your family? How's your grades? How all those things. I've graduated every kid I've coached, and that's a big deal for me. When you come from a third world country, and you have an opportunity like this to get a degree and to have something paid for by somebody else, that's a hugely important thing. It's an important thing if you grow up in this country, but if you come from a third world country and somebody offers to pay for your education, then that's a big deal. And so I think I've prided myself in making that a priority for me. And then the other thing that when you go recruit young people, they want to be successful, right? That's why they're still competing in their sport and they're still trying to be great. And I like to win. I like to compete. So and you and I had plenty of battles against each other on the track, right? And you're a great competitor, and you were tough as nails. So we battled. And I'm not shying away from any battle. I like to compete. So, and I think my athletes appreciate that you know, we're going to go to battle together. It's not a war. It's a battle. It's a chance to go and see who's best today, and then go back tomorrow and work some more. So I think those two things the athletes appreciate.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about team success and how important it is for athlete and coach relationship in terms of trust. Now, how difficult it is, or it is to train an athlete that doesn't trust you or doesn't have the belief. Is it possible? Can you train an athlete that?
No. No, look, you can train them, and they'll have some marginal success based solely on their athletic ability, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's very difficult, and they're one of the hardest parts about the college coaching scenario is every athlete you get was coached by somebody else before they got here, right? And it's not Usain Bolt who had the same coach from when he was 12, 13 years old, right? You're getting a young adult who was successful with coach whoever at a high school level, and you're throwing him in the deep end of the NCAA. And we all know that the NCAA is as close to world-class track and field as you can get, right? 2017, CJ Green ran 10:05 in the 100 at NCAAs and didn't make the final. And 3 months later, it took 10:09 to make the World Championship final. So this is world-class track and field. And when you're young and you get thrown in the deep end, it's hard to keep an athlete focused and positive with what you're doing. So I think the communication is huge both ways. And if you can keep an athlete communicating back and forth with you, you can be successful. But if an athlete doesn't believe, and they truly believe that this is not the way to do it, then you're not going to be successful. And those athletes you have to sit down and have a conversation with, right? Be part of the success. I tell most of the kids when they come in that my expectation their first year is for them to just listen, do what they're told and listen. Your sophomore year, I think you should be over there asking questions. Why are we doing this? How does this make me better? And then junior and senior year, we're in a partnership. I want feedback. I want you to know your body well enough. I want you to know my system well enough that you can come in and say, hey, coach, I feel like I need a little more speed work. Hey, coach, I feel like I need a little more strength work. So if you get good, mature young athletes, then I think those things are doable.
All right, awesome. So just so you talk about the trust and athlete relationship. So for the athletes that believe in you and trust you, what are some of the things you do to motivate them? Or they got to find the motivation themselves?
Yeah, look, I would say less than 10% of the athletes that I've coached that I need to motivate. I think 90% of them are self-motivated, and that goes back to the recruiting process, right? I went the first time I met Ricardo Chambers, I knew Ricardo was going to do whatever it took to be successful. Not just on the track, but in life, right? I mean, you look at his farming venture right now, like, man, that dude, he's he's built a farm out of the side of a mountain, you know, where there was nothing. It was just jungle, right? So, you know, he's a tough dude, and he's going to be successful in everything he puts his mind to, and that's what drew me to him. And I think the recruiting process, you don't get it right all the time, but if you know what you're looking for and you go get that athlete that's motivated intrinsically, then I think you can be successful all the time.
Okay, awesome. Well, we know that the NCAA system in the United States is one of the best. Well, it's the best in the world. Nowhere in the world has that type of a system where you get to compete. And it's similar to the high school system in Jamaica.
Mhm.
It's very competitive, and the thing. Um, you know, what are some of the pros in terms of why you think that the NCAA overall the athletes perform so well?
Well, I think that the sheer numbers indicate that there's going to be successful athletes, right? When you talk about, you go to the NCAA meet and there's 21 events, men and women, and there's, you know, 24 athletes per event at the NCAA meet, and on average it took, let's just take the men's 100, it took 10:18 to get there, right? So there's 24 athletes there that have run 10:1 or better. um, you're going to have successful athletes come out of that system because of sheer numbers. And I think when you look at the last 4 or 5 years, the depth of track and field in the NCAA has grown in leaps and bounds, right? You go back to when you and I were running, and if you ran under 50 seconds, it was a big deal,
Yeah,
right? There weren't that many dudes running under 50. And
yeah,
now there's more guys running 48 seconds than there were running 49 when we were around.
yeah,
And I think, again, I go back to, I think there's two factors involved in that. One is that there's not the opportunity for foreign athletes to make the jump from juniors to seniors very easily. So they're coming to the States and they're being part of the NCAA system, right? When you see a young athlete like Sydney McLaughlin, even though she only spent 1 year in college, but she didn't turn pro immediately, and she'd already been on an Olympic team. Okay. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing I think that has ballooned, especially the men's sprints, is the concussions in football. You're seeing a lot of young athletes that are choosing track and field, or their parents are choosing track and field because of the concussions. If you go back to when concussions became a real talking point about 10 or 12 years ago, you'll see the rise in the numbers of athletes that are running fast, especially in the men's sprints.
yeah. Well, yeah, talking about concussion, I mean, I know playing soccer in Jamaica growing up, especially in third world country, and Ian could tell you about that because he probably had one of those and he didn't even know about it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
you know, yeah, but yeah. So just to move along, and I want to get into the mental part of coaching athletes. How much emphasis do you put on their mental part? Because you know that you could train the athletes physically, and you could get to do the workout, and you could get
Mhm.
the results in practice, and you're not getting the results at the meet. So
Right.
how important it is from a mental standpoint, and how much work did you put in, and how do you what's your philosophy on that?
Look, I think it's everything. But I think it's like everything else we do in life. If there's consistency to it, then it can be something that will show up in the tough times, right? When the pressure's on. If it's something you only do part of the time, then generally it's not going to show up when when you need it to. So, we talk about the mental preparation every single day. When I post my workouts for the next week or the next 2 weeks or whatever it is, we like to put in notes about what the focus is for that athlete for that day, because I want them to be mentally prepared. Because I feel like one of the things that's missed in our sport is that athletes can go through the motion Monday through Friday and then try to turn the switch on Saturday, and it doesn't often work. So we talk so much about consistency in everything we do, and the mental aspect is part of that. So, I try to create as much as I can scenarios in practice that mirror what we're going to do in competition, right? I like to have groups of athletes that train together that have different strengths and weaknesses. If you're a great starter, then I want you to do some longer work with people that are great finishers, because I want you to work on your weakness, and I want you to be able to mentally withstand the knowledge that tomorrow I'm going to go work on being able to finish, which is a weakness for me. So that's the first part of it. We early in the conversation, we talked about 1995. I didn't win a race the whole summer. And I remember talking to Derek Atkins, who was world champ that year.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he goes, look, you're lining up here with 7 other dudes, and they're all physically just as talented as you. But the mental part of this is everything. You have to be able to walk out there and say, I'm going to be better than those other 7 guys today. And how am I going to get there? What am I going to do? So, things like that. I think the mental part of our sport is everything. If you show up at the NCAA championships, or you show up at the World Championships or the Olympic Games, you're there for a reason, because you're physically talented. The question is, can you mentally withstand the pressure? Which ultimately, if we look at the greatest athlete our sport has ever produced, Mr. Bolt, that's the difference between him and every other sprinter in history. He was able to treat the Olympic final the same way he did Gibson relays, right? He treated it exactly the same. You watched him be himself in that moment, because he practiced being himself every day. And I think that consistency is a big part of it.
Yeah. But how it's kind of hard. Everybody at the time gonna say they're mentally ready. Some people are not honest with themselves, and as a coach, it's always, you know, it, ha- it's always hard to say. You could look back at it sometime and you could be like, look, but do you think that more emphasis need to be on mental coaching in terms of it's separately from what you do?
Ian, I think it's yes, there has to be more, right? And for me, I have tailored so much of what I've done watching Usain Bolt, right? I sat in Osaka in '07 in the hotel and talked to him for hours one night. And having watched what he was become what he then became, um, if you take your athlete and every day you mentally put them in a position where they have to work hard, where they have to execute, where they are comfortable with their craft, then when they get to a pressure situation, they're not questioning the execution or the ability to do something. Then they're able to be the best athlete they can be, right? So if you take an athlete and you never show them how to do block starts, but you train them max velocity every day, and they're super fit, and they're ready to run a fast 200, but they haven't done any practice in the blocks. There's anxiety related to going out and racing, right? Because they have to get in the blocks. So I think as a coach, you have to check all the boxes and remove as much of the anxiety as you can from an athlete, and allow them to be mentally prepared. And their mental preparation uh, is only good if you as a coach have checked all those boxes.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Well said, coach. So with that said and done, where are you at in your coaching career? You have accomplished a lot. Is there any what are some of the goals that you have that if you want to share with us, you know
I tell you what, Ian, I love doing what I'm doing. I've had opportunities to be a head coach. I I've coached at 3 great universities. I really enjoy doing what I'm doing. I'm doing what I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't need to be a head coach. I like coaching sprinters. I like coaching fast people. I enjoy doing this. And so my goals are simply, to get the athletes that I get to coach today, get them to where they want to be, and then go find the next, the next one, the next great one. I enjoy the recruiting process. So yeah, I'm literally living my dream. I love my job. At some point, when I don't have to pay for kids anymore, I will retire and go back to Zimbabwe and fish every day. But until then, I'm truly doing what I love to do.
Awesome, awesome. I hope I could visit your country one day. I never got the opportunity, but
You need to
it's
come.
on. Yeah, it's on my list. I definitely want to do it. So I'm gonna get this question and get you over to Ian, and then we wrap it up. So for each athlete, I know you said in terms of the freshmen when they comes in, you don't have a lot of expectation for them, but what for an athlete that attend your university, you recruited, you coach, what's your goal for that athlete? What do you want when the athletes show up and
Mhm.
when they're leaving? What do you as a coach? What's your goal for that athlete?
Well, when I've recruited that athlete, one of the conversations that I've had with them and their family is what are your goals, right? What are your goals academically? What are your goals as a person? What are your goals on the track? And we've written those down. And then when they arrive on campus their first year, we have a one-on-one meeting, and we reconnect with those goals. Okay. I want to be an accountant. Okay. Well, what do we have to do? I want to be an Olympian. Cool. What do we have to do? I want to be a leader in the community. What do we have to do? So much of what we do in life, people are so caught up in the first step, and so many people are paralyzed by that first step because they don't know which direction to go. And we have a philosophy, or I have a philosophy in my coaching, that is, let's figure out where we're going and work our way backwards, right? So when we plan a season with an athlete, we sit down, we start with the last meet of the season, and we work our way back to today. Okay, and we build everything in reverse. So this year, for example, Joella Lloyd, the young girl from Antigua, her goal is the Olympic Games, but maybe a bigger goal is World Junior Championships. So we started with the Olympic Games. We worked our way back through Worlds. We worked our way back through the NCAA meet, back through the outdoor season, back through the indoor season. And then we determined our training cycles. We determined our plan. We looked at her class schedule. We figured out what classes she needed to take in the fall because she couldn't take them in the summer because she'll be at World Juniors. We looked at how much time she needed to be able to go home over the summer because she didn't get to go home over Christmas because of the quarantine. So we've really truly worked our way back from the end to the beginning. And if you do that with an athlete, whether it's a 1-year plan for this season, or it's a 4-year plan for their college career, or it's an 8-year plan through the next 2 Olympic Games, I think if you do that with each athlete, they're able to see the steps, and they're able to appreciate where we're going. And when they can see the overreaching goal, then they can understand that sometimes we take 2 steps forward, and there's some days we take 1 step back, but ultimately we're still headed all in the same direction.
All right, awesome, awesome, coach. And just for this bonus question, in terms of journaling, as a coach, how much emphasis you put on journaling, or it's up to each athlete?
On what? Sorry.
Journaling, keep a
Writing down.
record. Yeah.
I I write down every workout we do, but I very seldom put in the outcome of the workout. Um, I don't like to compare, January 7th, 2021 to January 7th, 2019, because the athlete's 2 years older. Uh, there's a pandemic. It's different. There's a ton of factors, right? She had a boyfriend. She doesn't have a boyfriend. He had a girlfriend. He doesn't have a girlfriend. They broke up last week. They're in a good spot. So, um, I like to write down what we did, but not necessarily the actual times of the workout. I have some athletes that that write down everything, how I felt before, after, during. And I have some that couldn't tell you what they did last week. So I think it's, again, very much an individual thing.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Over to you, Ian.
All right, coach. Just before I fall asleep here, quick question. In terms of coach to athlete relationship, how important is that relationship in involving even the trust between both parties?
I think it's huge. There's the athletes that I recruit so often are here because of an athlete I had before, right? You remember World Juniors 2 years ago, Christopher Taylor was the favorite in the 400, right? And the young man from Belgium beat him. And that young man is on our team here today. And he's here because the Borlée twins I coached them at Florida State. And I treated them the right way. I did right by them. I did things the right way, and they trust me. And therefore, I get an opportunity to work with the next young, great athlete from Belgium. So that trust is huge. It's very difficult to build that trust during a recruiting process, right? You talk to a kid on the phone. Every now and again, you do a Zoom call. They come to campus for 2 days. It's not a true relationship. So I think a lot of times you're building that relationship off past relationships with athletes they know or athletes they trust or whatever it is. Kerry McLeod is, one of your great young upcoming athletes. He's here at Tennessee. Wayne Pinnock is probably the next great long jumper in the list behind him. He's about to arrive on our campus next week, and he's coming because of Kerry, right? And what Kerry said to him and how Kerry feels about being here. So I think that trust is so often passed on by the athletes that you've coached prior to.
Thank you very much. I'm back to you, Ian.
All right, coach. So Alex probably got one or two more question. I'm gonna show one more clip before I actually question, and then we're gonna let you go.
Right.
It's up to the 2 hour mark. Uh, yeah, coming down right now. All right, coach. Thank you for that, man. It's some great work that you have done, and I'm pretty sure that your course is going to help a lot of other young coaches out there. In terms of just knowing that you know I just said it before that you can watch some of these things on YouTube, but you don't understand the phases of the whole process of how to get someone to run their best at a certain time. So different phases and different things. So so with that said, Coach, the last question here that I have is Ken Harden, two-time Olympian, three-time World Championship representative for Zimbabwe, the NCAA champion. Um, how you want to be known for as an athlete? Tell us that first, and as a coach, how you
Well,
want to be known and remembered?
good question. I'd like to be remembered as somebody that works hard, right?
Yeah.
Somebody that represented my country, represented my family well, that at every juncture worked as hard as they could, and somebody that treated people really well. I'd like to think that the athletes that I've coached with will tell you for the most part that I care about them, that I truly care about their success and their lives. But ultimately, I will never be outworked. So I'd like to be remembered for that.
All right. All right, appreciate that, Coach. Like your energy. I like, I figured that being a dedicated and a passionate worker, with all the attributes he has as a former athlete, we're looking for you to do big things. Any possibility of you coaching back in Zimbabwe as a part of the national team in the future?
Yeah, I think so. I think when my kids are old enough to go to college and they're out of the house, then I'd like to go back and give back some, and be able to do some work there. I do seminars there when I go home and things like that, and try to give back. I've always felt like my opportunity is right now is to bring athletes here. And Brian Zingai and a couple of us former Zimbabweans, we work really hard to find scholarships for young kids from over there. So yeah, I'd like to go back. Certainly, it's, as you know, home is always home, right? So
All right.
ultimately, I want to go back.
All right. And I'm gonna throw this one in. Knowing that you spend a lot of time on the track, coaching athletes, all day, sometime all through the day. What you do in your free time away from track? What coach does to relax himself and to get regroup and to come back again the next day?
I'll be honest, Ian. Fishing is my hobby, right? I love to fish. It relaxes me. It calms me down. I have a little bit of an ADD problem. I find it very difficult to sit still. I'm high energy, so but fishing seems to be able to get me calm. So that's what I do. I enjoy it. It's something I grew up doing with my dad, my grandfather. So it's something. It's a special place in my heart. So I like to fish.
All right. So my final thoughts before I send you over to Ian to close it out. Again, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's always good to to talk to or to chat or have a conversation with someone that you compete against. And for many years, probably all the way from '94 all the way up to I didn't retire till 2008. So,
Yeah, and you're still training. You're still in better shape than all of us.
so hopefully I could get better. I'm doing a little bit of reading. I'm listening to you. Now that I'm older and I'm taking care of myself now, I can do a little bit of things, prioritize a little things in terms of eating better, and I got money to buy what I need now, and things like that. So I'm hoping that I could do better, but no, so want to thank you for sharing your experience. Going back, I know that your life is so much into coaching right now, and you're looking ahead, trying to outdo your athletic career in coaching. You're trying to coach guys to win gold medal and NCAA champion, doing way better than what you did. It's always the goal for me.
Yep.
I
Yes.
I'm always looking forward to see if I could help someone to do better. I wasn't able to win a medal. It would be a great feeling to actually work with someone that actually won a medal in the Olympics. That's probably the closest I'm going to get. So I thank you for your time. I also want to wish you all the best and success with the group of athletes that you have. I truly believe it that you're a dedicated and passionate coach. I know that that's the reason why you have your results speak for itself. I don't have to say it. You've been doing this and you're going to continue to do it. And so all the best. With everything that you do. I wish you and your family success. And I also want to give a quick shout out to your brother. I know we didn't talk much about it, but it a lot of people don't know that it got to be a great feeling to compete alongside your brother
Yes.
doing the same event in the same Olympics. And actually, I'm pretty sure you guys raced each other before.
Never. We never race each other. But
Ah,
but his name is Ian too, right? So
yeah,
I should have had him on. He fits right in.
yeah, yep. So that's another Ian. So yeah, so yes, just give him a shout out, and I always remembered him. The one thing with me, I remember, I like the history of the sport.
Right.
So I try to keep up with it, and it's just stuck with me. So give him a shout out, and we're looking for maybe one day you're gonna have another young one going around the track.
I hope so. I hope so. Hey, thank you so much for having me in. It was a privilege to compete against you, this is great. I really appreciate the time. So yeah.
All right. Any final words, Ian?
Well, I think our audience has said it all. Just take this from Gary Barnes. He said, like Coach Harden energy. He knows his stuff very well. So that said it all, Coach Harden.
Thank
You
you.
basically did what we asked you to do: inspire, motivate, and educate someone else. And you definitely knock it right out the park. So that's a home run. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome.
Thanks for taking that time out.
Thank
And
you.
we really appreciate you. And thanks for keeping me awake for most of the time. Because, as I said, I was burnt. So it's your energy that allow me to, make it through this one. So thank you very much, man. You have a blessed night.
Thank you. You too. Appreciate you guys. It was my pleasure, and thank you so much. And
All right.
thank you for doing this. It's very cool.
All right. Thank you, Coach. All the
All right,
best.
guys.
All right. Bye.
Sounds good. Take care.
Peace out. And Ian, I'm leaving.